Welcome to the Cricket Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is The Fool.
Hello, everyone. This is a long overdue cricket podcast after a fantastic summer of cricket, which we were, I think, quite happy to have here in New Zealand and quite fortunate to get. We moved to the Northern Hemisphere and we have, I think, a similar vibe in England where they're happy to have the cricket again and the crowds are really enjoying it. A bit of a pity that the first match petered out to what it ended up being.
I mean, it was still a bit of an exciting last day with New Zealand having a very, very sporting declaration.
I think a very sporting declaration, and I think I honestly don't understand why England literally went from the start to be like, we're playing for a draw. Like, they never attempted to win.
I know, they only needed, just over 3 runs and over to get it? That's it's a little fast for a last day of a test match, but it's very doable. You think they might have had a little try.
The Lord's pitch didn't look like it had any demons in it.
No.
It was good for both. I think it was a pretty good and even pitch.
I think at the last day it was starting to get a bit of up and down variable bounce. There was some that ripped through the keeper and some that were keeping quite low. So that the bounce by the end of the 5th day wasn't the best. So
England are going to have to try and be flexible with their strategy if they want to win the Ashes. And it feels like England have pretty much made it obvious all they care about is winning the Ashes in Australia this year, which I'm not sure is the right where you should be thinking about the match ahead of you rather than the match in, 8 months' time.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. Do anybody think England are going to win the Ashes in Australia?
I don't think so.
I think it's a very hard ask. And that's all I'm going to say. India are a very good team.
Yeah.
And that was a close run series that was a hard fought victory they won in Australia. And there's a reason why those back-to-back victories are so venerated. Those were not easy wins.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was a lot of hard work by India to get there, and they really dug deep to get it. It was something special.
England do not have India's bowling lineup and bowling depth, or all-rounder depth, or batting depth.
Yeah.
But they don't India literally played a C team in the last test to win the game. But their C team, like any other team to lose as good an all-rounder as Ravi Ashwin, would be struggling.
Yeah.
But they not only lost Ravi Ashwin, they also lost Ravindra Jadeja, who is the 5th best all-round. I think Ashwin is number 5 and Jadeja is number 1 in the world. And then they just replaced it with Washington Sundar and Axar Patel, who just did the job.
Yeah.
And that's the depth. They not only lost a main all-rounder, they lost their second main all-rounder. And both of whom are gun spin bowlers, for that team. And provide that incredible balance. And those guys also got their, they got replaced by guys who just did the job. And that's not even talking about their pace bowling lineup, who were on the 3rd tier, because Bumrah was out.
Yeah.
Bhuvi was out. There's a bunch of debutants in that test, and that's not even talking about their batting lineup where Kohli wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So if England are thinking, that's because in India you played a third-rate team and beat Australia, and we beat India in one game in India, and we could have won that test series if we hadn't played so poorly. In the other test, we can beat Australia. That's not that easy, I don't think.
No.
I think Australia's big thing is they're not going to have that many test matches before the Ashes. That would be a concern for me if I were a Baggy Greens fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't get me wrong here. As a New Zealander, I would love it if England won the Ashes in Australia. It would be hilarious. So I'm not suggesting that I don't want England to win. I would very much like them to win, but I don't think this is how you do it. I have a vested interest in England potentially doing well in Australia. And part of that is England have at least play with the batting order. Their 2 openers are definitely good. Rory Burns and Dom Sibley can hold up an end and bat for long periods. If they could just put a couple of their more attacking batsmen at the front to attack, to open with. If they start losing 3 or 4 wickets, they can put these guys in to like slow it down and get it steady.
Yeah.
Instead of right away basically batting yourself out of a winning position, because at that position they were in, they weren't really like, it was going to be very difficult to lose if they kept their head right. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't need to go crazy to win, and it would be very difficult. And I think it was a very sporting declaration because Kane Williamson wanted to challenge his bowlers into getting a win, as opposed to going, this is a easy target you're going to bowl at. He wanted to challenge the bowlers before the match against India.
I think also there was also a challenge in the bowlers. There was also the fact that having lost today, you needed to tempt England into attacking or trying. They were, like if England was going to come out and try and be defensive and bat the rest of the day, they were always going to be able to do that.
Yes,
there just
I
wasn't
agree.
enough time to.
70 overs is not enough time to get that England lineup out in that pitch. Unless you had an incident like the one we watched live in Auckland a few years ago. And that doesn't happen all the time.
No, and the Lords at Lords, it didn't seem to be swinging as much either. Like the pitch was pretty, not very dead, but reasonably dead. There wasn't really a lot of movement in the air. Like the bowlers just weren't getting full amount of assistance. There was still, I mean, it's Lords, so you still get movement off the pitch. Last day, the bounce wasn't particularly even. There was still trouble for the batters, but I mean, 70 overs was, that was the maximum they could leave them really, and it wasn't. If England wanted to, they could bat that out. That was, I think, pretty clear. So I think that's why there was the sporting declaration. It was called, this is something England can get, so go for it, because that's the only way we can win. But if they go for it, our bowlers have to be on top, because England can get this quite easily. So
yes.
But as it turned out, England decided that they weren't going to go for it. They were happy to bat the draw, which is a bit sad, but that's what they wanted to do. And he's saying maybe that's their plan going to Australia, is to be able to bat long periods and hope that's going to win them the Ashes. So we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like also that they misread the mood. I think the fans were literally like, look, the UK has had a far longer lockdown than we've had in New Zealand, and people really wanted to go watch a test match. They wanted to watch something, and they'd paid their money, and like there was a point where there are no World Series points up, for here, so there's no playing for a draw doesn't get you anything,
Yeah.
If they had promoted someone like Zach Crowley or Ollie Pope up, or Dan Lawrence up the order to bat and get a quick run, that would at least entertain the crowd, even if they didn't stick around and get a big score.
At least give some entertainment value, right?
Yeah.
As you say, they still had Burns and Sibley to come in after that if things were looking a bit bad, I guess.
And as opposed to watching a glorified net session, which is what it became.
Yeah, I guess the problem might be that if you do it that way, you might give the New Zealand bowlers a bit of wind, because they get a bit of confidence, they get some wickets, they get their tails up. Yeah, maybe momentum might be an issue there, and maybe then you have the issues of not being able to keep it down. But
even if they went hard and lost, once again, there's no world. There's no World Series points up for this game, and I think we're more forgiving of a team that tries to attack and ends up losing than a team that just doesn't attempt to win.
Yeah. If New Zealand had won that test, the English would have been absolutely lambasted by everybody for going out defensive and then still losing in 70 overs. So I would have thought also that.
Whereas if they had gone for it and lost, and it was a close game and they tried to win, people would be like, okay, they tried to win. They weren't at least blocking things out.
And it was if they tried for the win, it was always going to be a close match. It was going to take most of at least 50 overs for New Zealand to get them all out. So then it would have been late in the day, middle of the last session, at which point England would be batting for survival then as well. So quite likely it would start to drag out, and you get that exciting finish. So which everybody likes seeing, one way or the other.
Exactly. Flip side, New Zealand win the toss, bat first, as I always suggest, and the great debut from Devon Conway.
Oh,
First
brilliant.
debutant since Matthew Sinclair to score a
Yeah,
double century
yeah,
he almost carried his bat,
yeah.
but he got run out by Neil Wagner,
Yeah.
who
The
did
last
score
wicket.
a useful 25 runs though, I must
Yeah,
say.
but and Conway does, I think, has one of the very specific but very interesting records now. So he becomes the first non-English player to score a century on debut whilst opening at Lords,
Wow.
which I find just hilarious. It's a very specific record, but that is Devon Conway.
Well, look, if you did a record at Lords, you did a record at Lords.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, there's a special category. It's like how, there's a special category to get into the ICC Cricket Hall of Fame based on the number of articles Noel Coward wrote about you in the 60s. Not
Yeah.
necessarily how many runs or wickets you got.
That's a good record as well.
Yep. How concerned are we about BJ Watling and Kane Williamson's injury? But obviously they're not playing this game, and that's going to be a tough ask to beat India without either of them.
Yeah, it sounds like Kane's one should be okay for the Test Championship final against India. It sounds like it's a little bit of a niggle, and he has had it all year, but he's played through it mostly. So it sounds like this was just very much give it a rest. There's no point playing when we want to play that game. So don't play this game, rest it up, let it settle back down, and then he should be fine for the game against India. Watling sounds a little bit more serious, but at the same point, the game against India will be his last game for New Zealand. So I think he will just. It would take a lot for him not to be out there.
That's true. He does have at least from a batting perspective, he has a very able replacement in Tom Blundell, I think.
Yeah.
Very capable with the bat and also pretty tidy wicket keeper.
Yeah.
Like, he's been the heir apparent for a long time. So I could see Tom doing a good job. But yeah, Kane is going to be key, I think. Will Young is a good player, but he's not Kane Williamson.
Yeah.
And that is no disrespect to Will Young.
I think, Will Young's very, very good. And I think he deserves to get compared to not being Kane Williamson in that he's a good enough player that it's not that he's not someone else because he is of his own run. But when you get to compare him to Kane, I think, is the bit. He's good enough to be able to be compared.
Yeah.
But the other injury concern is that maybe more of a worry in terms of not playing is Satner with his cut finger.
I am two minds about that. I like Mitchell Satner and I'm a supporter.
Yeah.
But I think in the British overseas conditions, it just seems Ajaz Patel offers a bit more.
Yeah, I do agree.
And from an attacking perspective. Yeah. Like, unless you're going to play Ish Sodhi, which I would love.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that.
I don't think they're going to do that. And I think Ajaz Patel, I believe he's a left-arm spinner.
Yes, left arm.
Right.
Left arm
he offers a bit more with his finger spin.
Yeah. And he's showing it that so far in this test, day one test, and he's still got 2 wickets.
And I believe the Southampton pitch will give him some assistance.
Yeah.
From what I understand. So I think Ajaz Patel, I'm not too unhappy if he gets to play.
No. It just comes down to Satner's experience, I think, and his batting.
So, and his batting.
Yeah. Like, Ajaz adds to the bowling stock, but Satner's been around a while. So, and I mean, listening to Ajaz on the news, he's settled himself in and played a good day of Test cricket. But he was going into this one super nervous because it's 14, 15 months since last time he played Test cricket. Been out injured, come back in. Obviously, there's a big game after this, and if he does well in this, he's there. So hopefully, this game he settles himself into the routine of Test cricket, and therefore, if he's needed or if they pick him for the final, then he's good to go. But that's more my concern. Is just that with Satner that he will be fine in the Test final. He'll just do the Satner thing and do fine, and as long as his finger's healed, he'll bowl tightly enough. Maybe won't get all the wickets, but he never seems to be able to do it.
Do you think we need it's a bit. I agree, it's a bit more of a risk to play Ajaz Patel, but do you think that that's what we need to take a bit of a risk to try and beat India in that game?
I think if we're going to take a risk, that's the place to take the risk as well.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get a slightly better bowling threat. That said,
Yeah.
it is against India.
Which is why I think we need a more attacking spinner, because India, if they're looking to attacking, there is an opportunity to try and get wickets.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're just comfortable and happily milking singles off a spinner, which India are also very good at.
Yeah.
That might end up happening with Santner, and he'll just end up being a stock bowler for that game.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can carry a stock bowler. I know it's a terrible way to describe it, but
I know what you mean, though.
yeah. I like that they're giving Daryl Mitchell a go, because I think we do need to try and shore up that all-rounder slot.
Yeah.
Even though I think Kyle Jamieson is effectively an all-rounder for this team, especially against India. He has a really good record. So I think in the final game you will have Kyle Jamieson play. I like that Neil Wagner got 2 wickets at the end of the last in the last test in the chase, because I think that shows that he does he's probably the best first change bowler in the world at the moment, and he's devastatingly good in the 4th innings.
Yes.
Of a test match. So if we win the toss and bat first, which I think would go a long way towards giving us a better help improve our chances in that game.
Yeah.
Because India's lost tosses against Australia and were chased in the 4th innings to win games. So we should not discount that possibility from them.
Yeah.
Because I think Saudi is good, and I think Bolt is just always reliable. The left armour, he's always going to give trouble to India, and so is Wagner in New Zealand. In these sort of conditions, because Wagner, when he's not bouncing you with his with that short ball attack, he does swing the ball quite well.
Yeah, well, that is his actual trade, right? He's a genuine swing bowler, and he can do that. He just has a very good short ball attack, and uses it to good effect. But when he needs to,
and as you know, I'm an advocate for left arm swing bowling.
Yeah.
In swing bowling conditions.
Yes.
Also, I think giving Matt Henry a go, because he does provide something else a bit different in the batting and the bowling lineup. I believe he's the quickest of the bowlers here, because obviously Lockie Ferguson is not in the squad, I don't believe.
Between him and Bolt, I would say, but I think Henry was bowling the quickest last night on day 1 of the 2nd test. He was quicker. Bowling quicker than Bolt, but Bolt can also bowl pretty quick when he needs to.
Yeah.
I think it'd be between the 2 of them.
Yeah. So there is something in there. So I think bowling-wise, I'm always a bit happy. Even if we had injuries or something like that, I would be okay, because I think we have depth. We have, I said, Kyle Jamieson. We've got Matt Henry. As long as I think at least one of the 3 Lions, I'm going to call them, Saudi, Bolt, and Wagner, are playing, I'm not worried about the fast bowling lineup. It's what they're going to do with the spin bowling.
Yeah, I think you're right. The fast bowling stocks are ridiculously deep, and it's shown between these 2 tests against England, right?
Yeah, and the other you only need one of the Lions for their experience. You don't need them there to because the others are capable of getting wickets, and the team have shown an ability to hunt in packs and get wickets as a pack and do that very well. So as long as one of those 3 are able to play in the final, I think fast bowling wise we're okay.
Yeah, I mean obviously all 3 of them bowling is awesome as well, but then you do have the problem of which of the others do, not taking in the others. But I think I agree. Spin bowling's the question.
Well, then it's Kyle Jamieson, right? Because he's got such a good record against India, and he can get he offers something completely different to the other 3.
Yeah.
He's tall and he gets that steep bounce right arm, and he can do and he can get like wickets at second change or first change if need be.
Yeah. And has out of if you count him as a bowler, he's one of the better batters out of those bowlers because he's really a all rounder.
I agree. He offers a really good balance. Like, this is why I think we can afford to take Ajaz Patel as well, because Kyle Jamieson is that all-rounder. And if your fourth seamer is a good all-rounder, then and Ajaz Patel's not terrible at batting.
No. He's not he's better than Bolt and I think Wagner, though Wagner still probably takes the night watchman's role, since that seems to be what he's doing. So,
yeah, but he's got a first-class 50 and averages about 13 odds. So, okay, while he's not going to score runs, he can at least hold up an end.
Yeah. He can let,
He's not...
If there's an established batter, he's not Chris Martin, no. It's not even Trent Bolt. Yeah. Not that Trent Bolt's batting is that bad, but...
yeah. None of these guys are Chris Martin in terms of their batting.
Bolt's batting style is a little more unorthodox than normal, but he's also shown that it works. It's more Vittori unorthodox than Chris Martin unorthodox.
Yeah.
Not as good as Vittori, obviously, but...
No, because Daniel Vittori is also another genuine all-rounder for New Zealand at Test level.
Yes.
Now, with the batting lineup, I'm assuming Kane will play, like you said, and I doubt, he's not gonna miss this for the world. And we probably, even if he's batting at like 60%, that's still like with his captaincy. It's just he adds all that to the team.
That's why he's not playing the second test, is to ensure that he can play against India. That's one way or another he'll be out there, and I think the same will go for Watling. Like, it'll take a lot of that injury to get a lot worse for him not to be playing, and it would have to be so bad now that he probably was coming home already. If it's just needs to be rested, then that's fine.
Yeah. And like, I'm a bit concerned, obviously, about Devon Conway, just because he's had the one game so far. I think he's well capable.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's gonna get overawed, but I'm sure like people, and he doesn't have that much international bowling he's faced. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
So he's learning how to play at the international level, and it's his third game is gonna be a final against the best team in the world.
Yeah.
And arguably the best bowling lineup he'll face.
Yeah.
And he'll have faced in his career. So.
Yeah.
It's a tough ask, but I think Tom Latham has traditionally done well against India as well, in both India and New Zealand, which is good, and he's good against spin bowling as well.
Has Latham scored a double century against India in India? Am I remembering that right?
I believe you are correct.
Yeah, and I think he's also scored it in New Zealand as well against India. Or was it 150?
I think he has scored a big. He has scored a big.
Scored a big century against them at least. I can't remember if it was a double century. Last year, the year before, last time India came.
Yeah. I think it says I got here that he carried his bat through a completed innings with 260, 4 not out. So he's more than capable, and he has a more than decent record against India.
Yeah.
Obviously, regardless of what happens in the World Test final and this game, for that matter, I think New Zealand need to persist with Conway and keep playing him.
Yeah, definitely.
Devon Conway's going to play the T20s. So he'll get a lot more chance to face more international bowling and develop his international game. Yeah. So they should I believe they should definitely keep persisting with him. Do you think Ross Taylor did say he wanted to play one more World Cup?
Yeah.
For the Black Caps?
Yes, I think he's targeting the T20 next year, World Cup next year, even though he's currently been dropped from the T20 squad.
I think he wanted to play for the One Day World Cup.
Oh, the One Day one as well.
2023. Like that would make him 39.
Yeah,
He's not
yeah.
that. He's younger than us, so we're not.
Yeah, good point.
Because he basically went, 20. Because 2019, Chris Gale was still playing, so he's like, look, I think I can still. And I
Yeah.
think in one-day cricket, and Test cricket for that matter, Ross Taylor's still a very handy contributor.
Yeah.
He does need to get. I think he had a good, useful knock in the second innings, like a good quick fire
Yeah, yeah.
30 odd, I believe he got.
He came out and did what was needed, which was they wanted quick runs, and he came out and provided those quick runs.
Yeah.
So, and he was the main force that
Yeah.
was driving the New Zealand innings along to make sure we got those quick runs, so that Kane could have the sporting declaration because he'd have the time to make it work.
Exactly. But I would like to see Ross just get some more runs, just to get himself into more nick before
Yeah.
the next game.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if he is targeting the ODI World Cup in 2023, there's a good chance, if not the next game, like in the next New Zealand summer, he'll retire from Test cricket to just focus on the one format.
Possibly, yeah. It'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah.
He may play this coming summer and then throw it in. But he may, at the same time, he may play Test through. Depends. I guess that may come down to how he's feeling in about a year's time.
That's true.
As we come up, heading into the final New Zealand summer before that World Cup.
Yeah.
So
we all know after the mid-30s, you're basically trying to hold on to as many things as you could do in your 20s every week for as long as possible. You slowly give them up over time.
But I think this Test match will be hopefully a good chance for Ross to really give himself that edge, especially going up and heading towards the Test against India, because he's pretty much with Williamson out and Watling out. He is the senior batter, the senior leader in the side as such.
Yeah, and the other person who I'm happy to see get some good runs, and I think is in good nick, is Henry Nicholls.
Yeah.
I think he's got a really crucial position in that number 5 in the batting order. Watched a very interesting YouTube video from Jared Kimber about him. Apparently, until 2018, he averaged about 100 versus off spin, and since then he's averaged about 9.
Oh, that's a dramatic change.
All sorts of off spin in all sorts of conditions, including home and away. So he wasn't like, before then facing part-time off spin, and then after that facing people like Ashwin and Nathan Lyon. He was facing basically similar level at both ends, and he's just seems to have developed a weakness against off spin. Now he's a left armer, obviously. So it is a known thing that they can struggle against off spin, but he's been working on it. India have 4 top-class off-spin bowlers in their squad.
Yes.
2 of whom are like the best all-rounders to be playing the game.
Yeah.
One of whom Shane Warne reckons will beat Murali Dharan's wicket tally. So yes.
Yeah.
It's something he needs to needs to get in order. Watch out for that. So yeah. Ashwin Jadeja or Akshar Patel, if he ends up playing, versus Henry Nicholls. On the flip side, with the off-spin, Tom Latham and Kane Williamson and Ross Taylor tend to bat very well against off-spin. I'm reserving judgment on Devon Conway. He hasn't faced top-level international spin bowling.
Yes. I think that needs to be tested.
He may well be very good, but I think it's like we should reserve judgment rather than talk him up or talk him down.
I do agree. I think with Conway, to say that so far he's shown a great potential, but you're right that it's one game, 2 innings. So see how he goes once he gets to have a bat in this game. And so you can't really talk him up or down at the moment because you've got to wait to see him in more conditions and against different batters or against different bowlers and game conditions as well. Game
exactly.
stresses.
Obviously, BJ Watling does not have a great record against the big 3. Got a wonderful record against everybody else and has played some clutch knocks. But I think you have to look beyond just runs when you're comparing BJ's record. He does still use up a lot of balls and help hold up an end, which I think Tom Blundell is more likely to maybe attack and go for runs if you're trying get more runs if he ends up playing. Which once again I don't think that's going to happen because BJ's potential last test. I think he's going to try everything to get ready to play.
He will play unless, of course, he cannot move. If he's in so much pain he cannot move, that's about the only reasons he's not playing. If he can somehow make it through 5 days of bending up and down, there's the possibility, I guess, where he says it's where he thinks he can't keep, and he gets picked on his batting, which does add an extra interest in there about where he who he replaces as a batter. But that could be interesting. If he can't keep, whether he still plays.
If he can't keep, does he still play? Because I think in that.
Still a very good batter.
He's a very good batter. I think you'd almost want him to play number 3 at that point, wouldn't you? You know, like the CJ Pujara role, basically.
Push Williamson to
and
4.
Just push everyone else down the order. And then you've got the option of whether you want to keep Tom Blundell in the side, or do you want to have Tom Latham take the gloves and have Will Young open?
There's a big call to have Will Young and Devon Conway opening, though, in the Test final. New pairing, both new players to the squad.
That's true, but the flip side is there's no data on them.
There is that. Like, India will not be able to do much.
And the part of the reason why the pendulum has swung back so far towards bowlers, like literally, I think since 2008, from 2017 to 2018, they said the world test batting average went down by 8 runs.
Wow.
Like every batter. So that's not a small amount by any stretch of the imagination. No. And basically it's all data analysis. Bowlers and both in baseball, and I think it'll show up more and more in cricket. Analysis helps bowlers more than it helps batters. Because, like, I'm going to use an analogy from one of my favorite episodes, one of my favorite shows. It's called Narcos. And in Narcos, there's like this great scene where Pablo Escobar basically pulls off some miraculous rabbit out of the hat trickery to evade capture from the Colombian and American police. And basically, the American police officer's really mad, and he's like punching the wall and going on and on about why does he keep getting lucky. And then he's like, why aren't you more mad? When he looks at the police officer, he's like, look, my dad's been a police officer and his dad before him. The one thing they told me is criminals are always lucky, and they need to keep being lucky. Policemen only need to get lucky once.
Yeah.
So batsmen need to keep getting lucky. Bowlers only need to get lucky once.
Yeah. That is a very good analogy, and it's very true.
So, like, you only have the one wicket. Once you lose that wicket, you're out.
If analysis looking at shows up a weakness or a deficiency in your technique or something, and the bowler knows about it, say they can keep plugging away at that. And all it takes is that one time where you get it wrong or slip up in some way, and the bowler's got you.
And bowlers no longer care about, great ball, and they somehow didn't get a wicket or there was a dropped catch. They're just like, that just means I'll get him, eventually. He just got lucky.
Yeah, I know what I need to do.
The plan's working. Exactly. And I think there's another side, like, I think cricket, even though it's had, like, sports psychologists help players to get confidence and things like that, and to work on their mental game, was another Jared Kimber podcast, and because he's been interviewing a lot of New Zealand players, including, and both these podcasts I highly recommend to any of our listeners looking. It's the Red Inker podcast by Jared Kimber. Shout out to him. He interviewed Danny Morrison about both his playing and his commentary career.
All right.
which was as entertaining as you can imagine because it's Danny Morrison, like
Yeah.
I think one of New Zealand's favorite broadcasters. There's enough said about that, right? Like him and Ian Smith.
Yeah. Definitely.
I think if we were gonna have a Mount Rushmore of New Zealand cricket, like Ian Smith would be there as a broadcaster. Like you would have
Yeah.
Martin Crowe, Richard Hadley, obviously, John Reid for his captaincy, and Ian Smith as the broadcaster. He the voice of New Zealand cricket in many ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Danny Morrison talked about it, but Ian O'Brien's podcast was really interesting because he talked a lot about mental health and struggles going into, because he had a very unusual pathway he didn't play school cricket. He only picked up playing first class cricket after university because he played softball all the way through his university career.
All right. Yeah.
And then he kind of he didn't know all the players. Like everybody kind of grows up, in the New Zealand team. Once you've made it, like if you've been playing in the first class scene since your early 20s or even as a teenager, you know all the other players. You've played against them, and you at least have played against them in age group level and things like this.
Yeah.
So he didn't, and he said there was a lot of things he wished he knew about how the player, what things were not to be said, and how the different dynamics within the teams were, within the hierarchy worked in the team structure. But he also talked about he thinks that there's good emphasis put on physical health and your your mental health, your mental game, but there's not enough. He thinks people are still not putting enough emphasis and analysis on emotional health.
All right.
His idea is look, there's a reason why so many people get out after scoring a century, and why so many bowlers just get the 4 wickets instead of 5.
Yeah.
And that's clearly a psychological thing. And how do we put them in the right position? So, and he's like, we have to create the right culture in the team so that those emotions are managed properly by each player, because everybody's emotions work differently. But they all have to be free to be who they are in that team, and they work out how they can be themselves and bring out the best outcomes for the team, which I thought was really interesting. And one of his big bugbears apparently is that if a team wins, they kind of get given the day off and they go out for a circuit and have a few beers, whatnot. If you lose, you have a whole day of analyzing. He's like, why don't we analyze wins? It's not like we did a good job. And no, usually this came down to moments and little bits. We should be analyzing those. And he's of the opposite opinion. He kind of just thinks, look, if you have a loss, I think, guys, we should just go, look, bad day at the office, we'll write it off. We'll analyze our wins because we get more opportunities to look the idea that you learn more from losing than winning is he thinks that's a fallacy.
That is an interesting point. And he does make a good point. You had a win. Analyzing it, at the very least, has as much benefit as analyzing the loss, as possibly more as well, because you can see the things you did right.
Or also what things the opposition did wrong, and whether you can, if you're playing them again, what you can do to exploit that again.
Yeah. How can we generate that same situation? Because we found there was these weaknesses or these bits where we always came out on top. So how can we ensure we manufacture those situations as much as possible? Because then we'll get the benefit.
He's working in the Wellington as both a bowling coach for the men's and women's team. And part of his job is to mentor people with mental health issues in Wellington cricket. So I'd be interested to see if he gets more of a role in New Zealand cricket, and gets to kind of get his ideas played out. It's really interesting because he came up with this whole idea and philosophy, and apparently he told one of his good mates about it, and then his friends went, "Oh yeah, that's just like Pete Carroll from the Seattle Seahawks." He's like, "Who? I don't know anything about NFL." Oh, so this guy, literally from the other side of the world, playing a different sport, came up with exactly the same ideas I did. So he's like, "Oh, that means proof of concept."
Yeah. Must be doing something right. Must be on the right track.
Yeah. Which I find hilarious. New Zealand at the moment, because his basic idea is look, at the moment New Zealand has a lot of depth and a lot of good players for both our batting and bowling, and even for spin bowling, while we don't have an outstanding spin bowler compared to international level, we've got a lot of people competing, and I think they all feel part of that team. I just don't think New Zealand gets enough games at test level. So like this generation could very well be wasted just because we don't get enough games to play and give people the chance to learn the international game.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Like, I think going forward, my adjustments to the World Trade Championship would be, I like the format of like you just play the 3 teams home, 3 teams away. Like, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
And like that kind of gets sorted out by your seeding, and I think that's also fine to a degree. It would be nice to figure out a way to integrate like the remaining 4 teams, I believe. So I think there's only 9 teams in the current roster. So I think Zimbabwe, Ireland, and Afghanistan are not part of the championship. So I would like there to be a way to incorporate them in. And if that means everybody has to play 7 games instead of 6, okay, maybe. I don't know. Maybe 7's a weird number, but even if you incorporate them in and they play 6 games somehow and you weird it out. I don't know how you do it. I'm just saying, like, there must be a balance. Relegation, promotion. I'm also open to that. Like,
well, yeah, 2 divisions, not necessarily relegation promotion. Well, it would be relegation to promotion, but you'd move up and down things. But the top 5 or 6 play each other more than they just do some crossovers to go down. Like they play one of the bottom set each, and then play each other or something, or play 2 of the bottom set and then each other through, so you get your 6 games.
Part of the reason why they didn't want promotion relegation is they wanted every test team to feel like they had a chance to win this test championship.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means we expand the format and we have like a longer tournament. I mean, that feels a bit unworkable.
Yeah, it's already a pretty long time period.
But I think relegation promotion for the bottom 3, the current bottom 3 in the test rankings, Ireland, the Zimbabwe, and Afghanistan, feels okay just because I feel like, they were, no disrespect, they weren't likely to make it to the finals. And even if we had a semifinals and finals, I don't think they would make it. So I feel like if they earn a spot to go in and like there's some, like it also prevents more match fixing, right? If you have a semifinals and finals, which I think we definitely should do, we should have like a semifinal series and a finals series. So like one of the rewards of winning, coming first and second, is you host a semifinal series in your home.
Oh yeah, I did ask for the semifinals home and away, but that makes sense. You did the 2-match semifinal series or something,
or even a 3-match semifinal series. I think is good, and like if you have a 3-match semifinal series, I think if it's a drawn series, then away. I don't know how you do it. Like whether it just means the team with the higher ranking goes ahead, or you have a super over.
Boundary but count back. Count back.
Yeah.
Was that
still too soon? Or maybe the team which gets the most wickets.
Yeah, and I think in that case it's still, even though it means the home team can just play for the draw through the 3 tests, I think the higher ranked one goes through. So the team that, the first and second team, so they earn their right to host it, they also earn the right to, if they can hold for draws, then they go through as well.
Or this is an idea that's out there and it'll never be implemented. If it's a drawn series and in the final test, we play a timeless test.
Oh, if it's 1-1 and it goes
or
to the final
test.
Yeah, or nil, whatever it might be. Because you can't stop playing the final test until there is a winner.
And if one side is leading 1-0, whoever wins the final test wins. The timeless test wins. So if it's a 1-1 or a 0-0, the final test is a tiebreaker anyway. And if it's 1-0, whoever wins the final test wins. So if you either want to win the first 2 tests and guarantee yourself, or you win the eliminator.
Yeah, or try again, So if the first test is a draw, then you want to concentrate on that last game.
Yeah.
Which makes for an interesting second game where people have thought ahead to the next game.
So it basically means people don't play out for a draw in the second game if you've won the first game, because the team can come back in the third test and beat you. Whereas
exactly.
if you try and get, like, if you've won 2 tests and the third test is just a dead rubber for, paying fans to play and whatnot, then it's fine that if you win that for, like, pride, all well and good, but you don't get to go to the finals because you lost 2-1. Or you can just have a one-off test, which is a timeless test.
Yeah, you could do that too, I guess.
I think the current format with reserve days and everything, it makes sense. Though, I think even if you had like a 6-day test with a reserve day in case it rains, then I think that's fine. It's up to the ICC to make sure that we get a contest, right?
Yeah.
I think one match home advantage maybe for a semi-final is okay, but a one-match test series feels a bit weird. Or you could just have the host country host the finals. It's like having a World Cup finals, like the Football World Cup finals. You're hosting it. If you don't make it...
Oh, yeah, so you host the semis and the final. Yeah, that could work too.
But, like, I think we agree that there should be some sort of semis and finals, right?
Yeah.
And I think if it's a draw after that, whoever's higher ranking wins because, you've performed better throughout the tournament.
Yeah. You got to have some benefit from coming first in the whole
first
tournament.
Or second, because you're facing the...
Yeah, or whatever it might be. Yeah. I mean, if you come first, you get the best benefits. You're going to have benefits to the semis, benefits in the final, no matter who you're facing.
Part of and I think valid points people made is New Zealand made the finals by playing far fewer games than Australia or India or England.
Yeah.
Part of that, I think, is every World Test Series is capped. You have 3 Test Series. You could still have the Ashes be a 5-test series and the Gavaskar Border Trophy be a 5-test series, but only the first 3 tests count towards the World Test Championship.
Yeah.
Because that way all the points are equal. Everybody's playing an equal amount of games for the tournament. And I think that's fairer.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that's fair as well. I feel like everybody should be playing the same number of tests for it.
I'm not saying these sort of rules would ever get implemented because I think it's gonna be...
no.
I can just see like England and Australia go, but like 3 games, like, because they usually play a 6-test series. 3 of the games are basically like not counting towards World Trade Series. So you could actually end up with one side winning the Ashes or retaining the Ashes, but like the other side getting most of the World Test, championship points.
Yeah.
Which, it's a thing that can happen.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe that might be what would have happened if India had... No, it would have been a drawn series because I think it was a 4-test series, wasn't it, for India and Australia?
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been a drawn series, and like the final one just decides who gets to retain the trophy. Well, India would have retained the trophy anyway in the event of a draw because they hold it, the Gavaskar Border Trophy. But I think some of these border trophies, like the Ashes and the Gavaskar Border, it won't matter that half the games only count for the World Trade Series because there's prestige in holding the Ashes and the Gavaskar Border Trophy, or like there's the ones that are the Wisden Trophy, like it's played between West Indies and England, and the Frank Worrell Trophy between the West Indies and Australia, and like the Trans-Tasman Trophy.
Yeah.
Like if India and Pakistan ever start playing Test series against each other again, then that's not a series. Doesn't matter if the Test match doesn't count towards World Test Championship points. They're gonna want to try and get those wins.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think test matches are still going to count, whether they count toward... Like, there'll still be test matches played that are not part of the WTC. And I think if they're not going to have the bottom 3 teams play in the WTC, there has to be, like, a future tours thing, like, where they get to each at least get to play, even if it's away from home. One of, like, Afghanistan, it's really hard for them to host, but Ireland get to host, like, England or Australia.
Yeah. That's why I was liking having the sort of 2-division approach and about having a cross.
2-division approach is good.
2 cross games, so they get the experience as well.
Yeah, because if we look at I think the ICC cricket rankings for the associates, I think Holland is the next associate, and I wouldn't mind if Holland, the games they play between could be just considered first-class games, and I think that's fine. After the full members, like the 12 full members, the associate members, if you just had like the ones with ODI status, just compete with those three, because currently that's Namibia, Nepal, the Netherlands, Oman, Papua New Guinea, Scotland, United Arab Emirates, and the United States. That's like 8 countries plus those three. You could have, or maybe just the top four, which is I think Netherlands, Oman, Nepal, Namibia, plus the three. That's 8 countries. You can easily do like a World Test Championship thing with them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's enough teams there to do.
Yeah, like 2 divisions, I think could work. And at least if you had a second division, whether you don't necessarily have to have a relegation promotion, but you're at least giving these test sides teams to play.
Well,
Like,
the relegation promotion comes from the test
yeah.
rankings, right? So you still get ranking points and go up and down the test rankings. So you just need to get into the.
I'm more
half.
meaning like I think if the full members go, no, we're not going to do this because we don't want to risk having like potentially India or Australia or England ever getting relegated. Like that would ever happen. Like it's not realistic.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It's just called the test rankings, right? If they drop down to 7 or 8, well, they drop down to 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Like, the same as what happens if they somehow drop to 10, 11, 12 currently, you know? I mean, you're right, it's never going to happen, but technically that's the promotion relegation now. Like, if they drop down to being worse ranked than Zimbabwe, Afghanistan, Ireland, you know, the name's the bottom three at the moment, what happens then if they're that low down?
Yeah.
You know, I would say that those other ones would be saying, well, surely we get included now anyway. So it's de facto promotion relegation by somehow having your rankings lose so many spots that you blow everybody else. So.
Yeah, like in the current format, Bangladesh would get relegated, so I'm happy they don't get now. Probably Afghanistan promoted ahead of them because in that period, Afghanistan has beaten them.
Oh, right, yeah.
I hope they do continue it. I hope that this is not just a one-off tournament.
Yeah, no, I think they're having to continue, don't they? Well, there was great plans.
They want to. I think the COVID has played a bit of havoc on it, but I do think it needs to have a few changes.
Yeah.
And I think there's some valid points. Like I think you and I talked about it when they changed how the point system was going to work, based on how many.
Yeah.
Like based on how many of the remaining games they could play, it blah blah blah. That's what really gave New Zealand an advantage. But yeah, Virat Kohli made I think some very valid complaints. Like, look, you kind of didn't tell us anything. Like you didn't like I'm not. He didn't say that the ideas were bad and they wouldn't work. But he's just like, look, we're players. We're not just people who have no stake in this. You can't just treat us like no one.
Yeah. The actual stakeholders on it. So
yeah, and like at least you didn't have to listen to what we said, but you didn't have to do what we said, but you at least should have taken our feedback and been like, oh, okay, like what we think is fair, or even like a fan group, like they did. It's like this is what's wrong with cricket, right? Like it's always decided by like men in smoky rooms in the middle of nowhere who just somehow decide they know everything. Like they never consult fans, they never consult players.
Yeah.
Unless they absolutely have to, like, like a union. This is the thing, like, cricket survives despite the incompetence of the administration at the highest level. Like, literally, it's people who are cricket tragics that keep cricket going.
That is very true.
But I think also cricket are more blatantly open about what's wrong in the game. Like, there are things like in baseball and football that are like controversial topics. We don't want to bring this up when we're talking about, the sport. Like cricket's like, we totally call people out on bullshit all the time. Like, because people are always insecure. Like cricket fans are always like, oh man, how much longer can we keep playing the sport that lasts for 5 days that we love? Like, we don't want to go away. But we're also like with that insecurity comes like we're blatantly willing to argue.
Yeah. And put a lot of effort into supporting it and keeping it going and having it happen.
Exactly. Like it's not a coincidence that I think New Zealand are one of the first teams to use analytics well.
Yeah.
I think in cricket.
Yeah, no.
Like it's one of those things like New Zealand always looks for how to outthink the opponents because they know they don't have the resources.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of looking at it.
You can't just rely on talent in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Like, we now have it, but even now they play in that mindset, make most of what talent you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's why players like Tom Latham, Henry Nichols can play really well. Like, and Ross Taylor as well, obviously. I think his record is probably a bit better than those two so far in their career. And like, obviously Kane Williamson is like a generational talent, but we might not get another Kane Williamson for 20 years. Like, we had to wait like 20 years between Martin Crowe and Kane.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in between, though, we had some very capable players like Stephen Fleming, Nathan Astell, Craig McMillan, and Brendan McCullum, who I shouldn't down. But yeah, also if you just count Brendan McCullum as just on his batting stuff, he's just very good.
Ridiculous. And just keeps evolving and changing and and is actually Brendan McCullum's a great example of that the New Zealand unorthodoxy that you're talking about
in tactics and strategy.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and thinking it through and adapting his play style to change over time to fit what's needed, what he could see needed to change to push things on to the next level as well.
Do you know where they're going after the final?
According to Google, basically no scheduled games until we play 3 ODIs against Australia at the beginning of next year. So I assume that
I assume there'll be something scheduled eventually.
They haven't scheduled it yet, basically.
And like, I'm sure they're going to have like a World Test Championship calendar set up.
Yeah. So it may be that it's waiting for them. They're waiting for the end of this cycle, the Test Championship, to put out the next cycle, and the games will get scheduled in at that point. And obviously, there's potentially a T20 World Cup next year. Yes, so that's coming as well.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot. There'll sure to be a whole heap of T20 games they'll start scheduling in and around that as well. So.
I'm sad to say this. Brunei cricket got kicked out of the ICC. I used to be an admin of in Brunei cricket when I was a teenager. Very sad. Because me and my friends in my high school, St. George's, helped form the high school cricket league.
All right.
Which originally only had 3 teams, and we won, obviously. And also, one of my dad's second or third cousin was like the captain of the Brunei cricket team for a long time, and like, he's late now, but he was also the CEO of Bangladesh cricket for a while.
All right. Oh, cool.
That's sad. Very sad for me to see that they got banned.
Yeah, that is sad.
But hopefully the Sultan will make sure we get back to our former status of wins again. I wonder how. I wonder how Brunei cricket has done since I left. Because it does play a regular annual tournament called the Borneo Cup, just played between just Brunei, Sabah, and Sarawak. Just ignores the southern half of the island. Because they don't count, apparently. And like, Brunei used to kind of have a bit of a monopoly in that, but they haven't won, I think, the Borneo Cup in a while.
All right.
The Sabah team has actually got a lot of locals who play for that team, but the Brunei team was pretty much full of like expat Aussies, and English players, and like people from the subcontinent who play cricket.
All right. Yeah.
But it's interesting because, but in that part of the world, Malaysia is mostly local. Malaysia and Singapore, mostly local people, but Brunei still, like, the diaspora are the main contributors to the cricket team.
Yeah.
But yes, with that all being said, and not to give you so much of a nightmare, I think that's all we have time for. Thanks very much for listening, and look forward to hearing from you next time.
Catch you next time.